Time to find out what I really think of converting miniatures. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, this is a video response to Ventuerella. Got it written down so I don't forget it this time. Yeah, Vince, his channel, go and check it out. The link is in the description below. Really great guy, some great content and an awesome painter. So check it out if you haven't done so already. But he does a topic of the week, and this week's topic was about converting miniatures and our thoughts on that and experience, etc. And I thought it was a great topic, so good that I would like to do the video response, which I'm obviously doing now. Now, one reason why I wanted to do this video response is I've got quite a good mixture of experience regarding converting miniatures. So I want to have a chat about my experience, what I think about converting miniatures, etc. And yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Okay, so I'm going to start right at the beginning, and that was when I had my Necron army. So I got my Necrons, and I fell in love with Necrons right from the beginning. Absolutely loved the army. I loved the look of the army. We're talking about quite some time ago now, so this was the old black codex with the green Necron picture on the front. And I loved the army so much that I wanted my army to look exactly like it did in the codex. And that's what I set out to do, and indeed that's what I did. So absolutely no conversions to start with on my Necrons, and it's how I liked it. You know, I just loved the army so much. They looked so good, they looked so perfect, that I didn't want to do any conversions. I didn't want to paint them differently. I painted them exactly like in the codex, or at least I tried to copy what was in the codex. And I remember playing it and being with my buddy who'd been in the hobby for quite some time then. He doesn't really play now, but at the time, you know, he's quite experienced, and he used to play Chaos Space Marines, and he used to do like mega conversions, every model really converted. And you know, he used to always say to me, well, you know, why don't you like convert them up, you know? And I'm just like, no, I love them how they are. I remember going to Games Day once, I think, and there was a Necron army there, and it was converted, and he had like destroyers with tomb spider bodies and stuff, and yeah, it looked pretty cool. But for me, there was no need to convert that army. It just looked so good as it was. I was in love with it, and I didn't convert it, and I stuck to quite the paint scheme of my army. Is the only difference potentially from the codex is I decided to paint my lords in like a gold colour, and then have the rest of the army silver. So that was the only sort of different, unique thing. And I did certainly appreciate unique things as I built the army, because when it came to the Necron Lord, for example, you only get one model. So I did start to do little conversions, and they sort of crept in. So when I got a second Lord, as opposed to obviously just painting them up and just having them exactly the same as the first one, I started to do a little bit of conversion work, you know, changing the arm, you know, just the little basic stuff that you do to make the poses different. And till this day, that's where I like to go. If I have a model which I'm duplicating, I like to have one of the models as the base model, exactly as it should be, and then my second model I like to convert and change up slightly, whether it's just a little pose difference, etc. It depends on the type of model. Obviously some models, like plastic models, are easier to convert than metal models, but not impossible, obviously. So that was where I started with my Necron army. Now I want to come back to Necrons again in a minute, but for now I'm going to move on to my second army, and that was Space Wolves. So with the Space Wolves, it was a slightly different scenario, because it was the Eye of Terror Space Wolves, the 13th Company, and the concept was that they had been locked in the Eye of Terror for so long, their armour had basically been broken, etc., and they had to replace their armour with chaos stuff. And it was an army specifically designed basically to be converted. And coming from the Necrons and pretty much doing no conversions, when I had the opportunity to convert, I really went for it, which is why I put so much love and so much time and so much money into my Space Wolves, into converting them. Every single guy has got a different pose, and pretty much no duplicates of bits. In particular, certainly the Chaos bits and pieces that are on there, most of them are actually all different. From that point of view, I really went to town on converting, and I really enjoyed it. So I've experienced both sides of the coin as such. You know, having an army which I really love and enjoy and pretty much isn't converted, and an army which is highly converted. And I enjoy both sides of that. So just moving on then to my next army was the Tyranids, which I didn't really convert. I changed the poses because a lot of the Tyranid models were quite similar. Certainly in the army I've got quite a few older models like the Raveners, for example. So they're all metal. So I started twisting the metal, making the towels all different, and just posing them differently. That's what I like to do. Just a few different poses just mixes the units up quite a lot. However, and another possibly part of converting is magnetisation. So with my Tyranids, I started magnetising stuff, the different weapon options, and that's really, really useful to have, and it's all part and parcel of converting, I think. Just, you know, if you've got two arms and you're magnetising them on, effectively you are converting those arms, or you're converting the model. So my Tyranids, yeah, I did a few conversions, magnetisation, and then I brought that magnetisation back into my Necrons when it came to the Ghost Arcs and stuff, you know, churning. Certainly with the introduction of dual kits, especially from Games Workshop, where the Ghost Arc, for example, you could have the Ghost Arc or the Doomsday Scythe, or Doom Arc, sorry, and I converted them to be both options. So I brought that into my Necrons in the future, and then exploring with army lists and discovering I would like to play a 3 Catan list before they became Catan shards. I wanted to have a go at a model which is in the fluff, but there wasn't a model for, and that was the Void Dragon. And I converted a Deceiver into a Void Dragon, and I'd say probably one of my biggest conversions ever, which I'm really, really proud of it. There's a lot of green stuff work in there. There's the body is a Reaper Bones body. The head is a demon head where I moved the horns and changed the position of the horns. I've got paper clips for lightning, for the lightning strikes, thunderbolt lightning, and green stuff like cloak, etc. What I'll do is I'll put a picture of that conversion up now for you, so you can just see what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's that conversion that I did. I really loved that, and as you can see, I've got a good experience really from converting and not converting. I like both sides of the coin as such. I think ultimately it does depend on the model. So a lot of my Eldar stuff or the Aspect Warriors are all metal models. So say the Fire Dragons, for example. Not a great deal you can do sometimes with like metal models. So what I tend to do with those is I tend to make sure I've got a good mixture of models. So if there's for example 4 different sculpts, I'll have like 2 of each sculpt, and then throw in it like a couple of extras, rather than having say 5 of the same sculpt in one unit. So I will try to mix them up a bit, and then convert the Exarch, which you generally got a bit more room for the converting the Exarch, even if it's just putting them on a bigger base or a different base or something. So that was that, and Forge World conversions as well. So my tanks, all of my tanks have got the Forge World additional bits on, and although that's just an upgrade kit, you still have to do work on that, and you still have to convert them. So yeah, that was that. So moving forward, I'm going to skip right on now to the Dark Eldar, and the Dark Eldar, I've took all of the experience that I've built up over the years, and I restored and converted those models, in particular doing some green stuff tentacles and things, which I'd learnt from a conversion which I haven't mentioned, where I built some Tyranid drop pods, the new Tyrannocyte pod from some old Mega Block pods that I had, and that involved doing green stuff tentacles and things. So I think ultimately it is about experience. Possibly if I'd had all the experience that I have now and I was starting a Necron army, maybe I would do more conversions. But for me at the time, it was the right thing to do. It wasn't that I was scared of the conversions, it was the fact that I just loved how the army looked. But who knows, looking at it all these years later, maybe I would have done something different. So it's my little history as such of converting or conversions. So there's a few questions about this topic that Vince put out. One was, what do I think about conversions that are maybe a little bit too far out of what the models should actually be like, in terms of if I'm playing against them? Well, I play in very much like what I always call basement gaming, just with my few buddies. We do very often, or we have done in the past, proxied models that we don't have. I've done it before I used one of my daughter's toys as a, what's it called, the Forge World centipede thing, Tombstalker. I used one of those. I've proxied Carnifexes as Tervigons and stuff, just put different bases, bigger base on there. So I've done that over the years, we have done that. I don't tend to do it so much now, and the reason for that is because of my YouTube channel. So I like now to play with only painted models, and as much as I can WYSIWYG models as well. But I certainly have nothing against it. So the only reason really I do that is because of my YouTube channel. I like the battle reports to be as good as I can get them. But if my buddy plays, like the other night he didn't have his librarian on him, he got Corbio out or whatever he's called. I said he's a librarian, I said fine, no problem. But that's just proxy. So in terms of conversions that don't look like they're supposed to, I don't really have an issue with that. Once again, as long as I know up front what it is and what weapons it's got, then that's all I really need to know. I did have one of my buddies who converted this is my old buddy with the Chaos, he converted a Soul Grinder, but he used some sort of Dreadnought base, and basically it was a bit smaller, and I do remember he went to a tournament with it and he wasn't allowed to use it because it was too small. It's fair enough, I suppose there is an advantage to that, but putting tournaments and stuff aside, I personally have no issues with anyone using anything really as a proxy, especially if they're learning an army. We've all probably done like a cup as a drop pod, or a can of Coke as a rhino, as Vince was talking about. If you're learning your army, you're not sure if you want to buy a certain unit, etc., then why not proxy them, especially in friendly games, that's fine. And then, of course, I've had the great pleasure of playing Scragguard with the Star Wars army, where the whole army is basically converted. And he had the Rancor as a Wraith Knight, and he didn't have the sword or the scatter shield on there. It just had like 2 claws. But I knew what it was, and like I said to Scragguard, I said, if you said to me he had the guns, it's not quite so believable. But saying that he has the sword and board is more believable. But it wouldn't be an issue if he said to me they both got the Wraith Cannons. I'd say, he's got the Wraith Cannons, I'd just say, well, fine, as long as I know up front. That's the key thing for me, rather than actually physically being WYSIWYG, especially when you're playing a themed army, like his Star Wars theme army is. If you haven't seen that army, go and check out Scragguard's channel as well. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. So I think that's most of the points covered. Vince did say about most people, one of the big comments is that they're scared to do conversions, and it is scary sometimes to take a saw and cut off a head, or something like that. It is scary, but like Vince said, it's very difficult to absolutely mess up your model so much so you have to bid it. because usually it's salvageable. You know, you might have to change your conversion if you do make a mistake. Then you might have to change your vision of what your conversion is slightly if it goes a bit wrong. But usually it's quite salvageable. And worst case scenario, I mean, I used one of my farseers and I cut off his head, or used his head for something else. And I ended up with a farseer, and I converted that up with some green stuff and made that into a Royal Guard for my Eldar. It was for a competition, a Star Wars like competition that WarGames, Martin McNeil had. So I'll put a link to WarGames channel as well. Check that out, great channel. So you can always make use of your mistakes. You know, in actual fact, your mistakes, your offcuts, can be quite useful for inspiring you to do other conversions. My Wraith Knight, for example, I know I'm rambling here, but hopefully you're enjoying this. Maybe you're painting while you're watching this. But my Wraith Knight, with my Batleth conversion that I've got, I do have his sword, and if I ever make another Wraith Knight, I plan on having 2 swords, and he's got the wrong hand, so I'll have to convert his hand up somehow. But that would be pretty cool. So it'd be like a dual sword Wraith Knight. Quite like the idea of that. I think that would be pretty cool. So yeah, doing conversions means that you've got lots more bits left over, which is how you end up with an extra conversion. So on the whole, conversions, it's good. Don't be scared. Don't do it just for the sake of it. So if you're happy with how the models look, then run with that, you know, like I did with my Necrons. But yeah, there's definitely a pleasure in doing conversions. There's a pride in doing conversions, and even if it's just one model, like a centerpiece for your army, then that's good as well, you know. So it's definitely a plus side for the hobby. It's something to experience, and it's something, as you move on, as you progress through the hobby, you will get better. And in particular, one of those things is working with green stuff, and freehand as well. I mean, same goes to the freehands. I know there's nothing to do with conversions, but it's a bit like green stuff. Just do it. The more you do it, the more you'll get better, the more experience you'll get. And that goes for freehand and green stuff and conversions and anything in the hobby, really. Just do it. You'll enjoy it. Okay, so that is my ramble about topic of the week. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Check out all the links in the description below. Some awesome channels there. And I'll see you in the next video.